I remember sitting wide-eyed as my grandpa, a weathered Vietnam veteran, recounted the chilling tale he swore was true. He spoke of the humid jungles where every step felt like wading through thick soup. His unit had been tasked with navigating through the dense foliage, a task made all the more daunting by the ever-looming threat of enemy ambush. But it wasn't the Viet Cong that haunted my grandpa's dreams. It was something far more sinister. One moonless night, as they huddled together in their makeshift camp, a sense of unease settled over the weary soldiers. The usual chorus of nocturnal sounds had fallen silent, replaced by an eerie stillness that seemed to suffocate the very air around them. And then they heard it. The rustling of leaves, the snap of twigs, the unmistakable sound of something prowling through the darkness. My grandpa's grip tightened on his rifle as he peered into the blackness beyond, heart pounding in his chest. And then it emerged, a creature unlike anything he had ever seen before. It stood tall on two legs, its skin a sickly gray, its eyes glowing like hot coals in the darkness. Its movements were fluid, graceful, almost hypnotic, as it prowled through the underbrush with a predatory ease. Frozen in terror, my grandpa watched as the creature drew closer, its gaze locking onto him with an intensity that sent a shiver down his spine. And then, as if sensing his fear, it let out a blood-curdling screech that pierced the night like a knife. Without hesitation, my grandpa and his comrades opened fire, unleashing a barrage of bullets into the creature's twisted form. But it seemed impervious to their weapons, shrugging off their attacks as if they were nothing more than a nuisance. In a desperate bid for survival, my grandpa and his unit fled into the jungle, the creature's haunting cries echoing in their ears long after they had escaped its grasp. They never spoke of the encounter again, chalking it up to the hallucinations brought on by the stress and exhaustion of war. But my grandpa knew the truth. He had stared into the eyes of pure evil that night, and it had stared back, hungry for blood. As he finished his tale, my grandpa's eyes were haunted, his voice heavy with the weight of the memories he carried. And though I tried to dismiss his story as nothing more than the product of an old man's imagination, a part of me couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to it than met the eye. And as I lay awake that night, listening to the sounds of the jungle outside my window, I couldn't help but wonder what other horrors lurked in the darkness, waiting to be unleashed upon the unsuspecting souls who dared to venture into their domain. In the blistering heat of the Iraqi desert, our unit trudged through the shifting sands, rifles heavy in our hands, sweat stinging our eyes. We were seasoned soldiers, but even the toughest among us felt a shiver crawl down our spines as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the barren landscape. I, Corporal Jackson, a stoic man hardened by years of service, couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching us from the darkness beyond. It wasn't the enemy we feared. It was the unknown lurking in the vast expanse of the desert. As night fell, whispers echoed through the stillness, whispers that seemed to originate from the very sand beneath our boots. We brushed them off as fatigue-induced hallucinations. But when Private Ramirez vanished without a trace during his watch, panic rippled through our ranks like wildfire. We searched frantically, calling out his name into the abyss, but all we found was his discarded rifle, half buried in the sand. Days turned into nights, and each passing moment only deepened the sense of dread that hung over us like a suffocating blanket. It wasn't until we stumbled upon an ancient, crumbling temple hidden in the dunes that we realized the true horror of our situation. Within its shadowy depths, we found Ramirez, his eyes wide with terror, muttering feverishly about a darkness that consumed him. And as we turned to flee, we felt it too. The icy grip of evil reaching out from the depths of the temple, hungry for our souls. We ran, hearts pounding in our chests, but not all of us made it out alive. Some say it was the curse of the desert. Others blame it on the madness that comes with war. But I know the truth. We were never alone out there in the darkness, and now we carry the weight of that knowledge with us wherever we go, a constant reminder of the horrors that lurk beyond the veil of our understanding. Years have passed since that fateful night, but the memory still haunts me. I see Ramirez's terrified face in my dreams, hear his desperate cries echoing in the darkness. And though I've tried to move on, to forget the horrors I witnessed in that accursed temple, they cling to me like a shadow, a reminder of the darkness that lurks within us all. So now, as I sit here in the quiet of my home, far from the deserts of Iraq, I can't help but wonder, was it truly the malevolence of the desert that claimed Ramirez? Or was it something far more sinister? Something that even now waits patiently in the shadows for its next unsuspecting victim? As I ponder these questions, I can't shake the feeling that our ordeal in the desert was just the beginning of something much darker and more terrifying than any of us could have imagined. And as the sun sets on another day, casting long shadows across my room, I can't help but feel a chill run down my spine, as if the darkness itself is reaching out for me, eager to claim me as its own. I remember sitting by my great-uncle's side, the flickering light of the fireplace casting dancing shadows across the walls as he spoke in hushed tones, his voice cracked with age, but his memories vivid as ever. He recounted the horrors of World War II, of battles fought in distant lands against a merciless enemy. But it was one particular night in Germany that still haunted him after all these years. As a young soldier, barely out of his teens, my great-uncle found himself stationed in the heart of the country, the landscape scarred by relentless bombing raids. The air was thick with smoke and the stench of death, but nothing could prepare him for what he encountered that fateful night. It was during a routine patrol that my great-uncle and his comrades stumbled upon an abandoned building nestled among the ruins. Curiosity piqued. They cautiously entered the crumbling structure, their footsteps echoing off the empty walls like a death knell. But as they ventured deeper into the darkness, a sense of foreboding washed over them like a tidal wave. That's when they heard it, the unmistakable sound of whispers drifting through the stale air, faint but unmistakable. My great-uncle's blood ran cold as he strained to make out the words, his heart pounding in his chest. And then from the shadows emerged figures, pale, emaciated, their eyes vacant yet filled with a hunger that sent a chill down my great-uncle's spine. They were the forgotten victims of war, the ones left behind to wither away in the darkness, their souls twisted by the horrors they had witnessed. And as they advanced upon my great-uncle and his comrades with outstretched hands and hollow eyes, he knew they were beyond saving. In a frenzy of panic and desperation, my great-uncle and his unit opened fire, the deafening roar of gunfire echoing through the silent night. But the figures seemed unfazed, their relentless advance never faltering. With no other choice, my great-uncle and his comrades fled into the night, the anguished cries of the tormented souls haunting them long after they had escaped the abandoned building. Years have passed since that harrowing night, but the memory still lingers, a dark shadow cast over my great-uncle's life. He may have survived the horrors of war, but he knows that some scars run deeper than any bullet wound. And as he sits before me now, a frail old man with haunted eyes, I can't help but wonder what other terrors he carries with him, locked away in the depths of his troubled mind. And though he may never speak of them, I know that they will continue to haunt him until the end of his days, a grim reminder of the true cost of war.